As I finished that assembly, and I was standing on that stage, and hundreds of kids were filing out of the auditorium, and I just felt the presence of God rest down on me, and I just stood there and I said, this is what I was born to do. I was fulfilling the purpose, the reason God put me on this planet. You say, how were you able to do that? Well, Pastor, you say, how were you able to do that? I presented myself as a motivational speaker, which I was. And I had key points that I dealt with: suicide prevention, conflict resolution, sexually transmitted diseases, alcoholism. I had about 5 points. I can't remember the other point right now, but these were the points that I covered with these kids. And we had some powerful assemblies. And most of the places I went, very, very well received, and they wanted me back. And the only reason I didn't get back sometimes is when they found out I was a preacher, and they became politically scared. But you know something? If I never do another one, I did a whole bunch of them, and I fulfilled the purpose God had for my life in that particular. And two things stand out real quick. I'll tell you as I'm closing. A young man came up to me at the close of one of the assemblies. He was head and shoulders shorter than every other kid his age. He just looked beat down. He looked picked on. He looked abused. And he said, these kids are so mean to me at this school. He said, my mom works at a convenience store. And earlier this year, somebody came in and held a knife to her throat and robbed the store. And it triggered cancer, and now she's dying of cancer. And she said, these kids pick on me every day. They don't know what I'm going through. My heart began to melt as I stood there listening to this young man. As he walked away, I motioned some of the teachers over to me, and I said, you guys need to build a wall around this young man, and you need to help him. I said, because that's your next school shooter if you don't do something about it. I said, he's not going to keep taking this stuff. I wasn't speaking that over his life. I was discerning what was happening and trying to put people in place to stop it. And every last one of these tragedies in our schools, there were all kinds of signals, all kinds of things, all kinds of posts, all kinds of plenty of telegraphing that it should have all been stopped. And it's nothing short of a crime that it wasn't. So let's just be real about it. I'm thinking of another young lady. She came up to me at the close of, she said, I liked your talk today. She said, my friend committed suicide earlier this year. And she said, I've got his picture on my notebook. And indeed, she had his picture taped on the notebook and said, the kids here at the school lied about him, and he couldn't take it anymore, and he went home and killed himself. I'm thinking of another young lady who came up to me and said, my parents don't love me. Said I cut my wrist and tried to kill myself, and a guidance counselor called, and they didn't even bother to come. I was able to get her name and email address, and I began to email her back and forth. after the assembly, and I'd gone my way, and she'd gone her way, and nothing untoward or illegal about correspondence. And as I began to hear her crying out for help in those emails, and I responded back, I said, you need to find a church near you and get plugged into their youth group. And I prayed, I said, Lord, please help her to receive this. Please help her to receive this. Some time went by. It didn't happen right away, but some time went by. She emailed me back. She said, I found a church. And she said, I went to that church, and I think she said went to Brownsville. It was either Brownsville or Toronto. I think it was either Brownsville or Toronto. It was one of the big revivals that was going on at that time. And she said, the Lord touched me and saved my soul. And she said, my whole world has changed.